Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, November 1st, 2023. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. A lot to get into. Let's start right at the top with the top team in the nation. The Ohio State Buckeyes get the number one ranking in the first iteration of the college football playoff rankings of this season, Patrick. We talked about this yesterday. I said if I had to pick Ohio State, I think it would be number one, I believe is what I said. But I also said I won't be surprised if they are number one. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Georgia was number one and Ohio State was number two. Bottom line is I'm glad it worked out like it did. And let me ask you this. Coach Day said it's a fun thing for fans, yada, yada, yada. Do you feel it might be a little bit different having the number one seed, or number one ranking? Do you feel like there's actual meaning behind it?
Well, I think it speaks to what you've done thus far. And look, I understand that he doesn't want to make a big deal about it because they have 4 more games to play. They haven't accomplished anything. This doesn't win you anything. There are, I think, 2 teams that have started off the rankings number one and didn't even make the college football playoffs. So there's no accomplishment here yet. And that's, I think, Coach Day's point. But I do think it speaks to what they've done. Have they been perfect? No. But if you look at everybody in the country right now, they have the best resume. As they talked about on ESPN afterwards, are they the best team in terms of talent and the team most likely to win the national championship? I think you could debate that, but we don't have a full picture of everybody's season yet. So I think as of right now, this is the top team in the country, and we'll see how things play out. Obviously, teams like Georgia and Michigan, if you look down the rest of the schedule, I have here the remaining strength of schedules pulled out. Michigan's is number one because they have to face both Penn State and Ohio State. Georgia, number 6. That's because they have to face, Missouri, who's number 2, and Ole Miss, who's number 10, Tennessee, who's number 17. So, there are opportunities here for teams like Michigan and Georgia to climb over Ohio State. But we all know really all that matters is win your games and you're going to be in this thing, right? And it's just a nice thing to start out number one. It's just like Georgia being number one in the preseason. It's just a respect thing at this point, except you actually played games.
Here's why I think it has meaning. Now, I don't want it to play out like this, but because I'm pretty confident Ohio State's going to get the job done in Ann Arbor. I'm not I wouldn't mortgage my house on it or bet my house on it or anything, but I'm confident Ohio State's going to get the job done against Michigan. But let's say Ohio State looks good these next 3 weeks. They go to Michigan. They were still number one by the CFP. The committee's talking them up. They lose a close game in Ann Arbor, and that's their only loss. They're sitting there at 11-1, and they were number one. Now, it's possible they could drop from 1 to 5, but even last year, they needed a lot of help last year. This year, they wouldn't need as much help. My point is them being number one right now, 2 things. I think it could help them get in if they finish 11-1 with a close loss at Michigan. B, if they do win out, I think they're going to stay ahead of Georgia. I don't think Georgia would then jump them like LSU did, for example, in 2019, especially with the win at Michigan and the Big Ten championship on top of that. So I think for seeding, it's important. And I think just in case something bad happens in Ann Arbor, I think it's good because it gives them a chance to have a second life.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it yesterday. You, Steve, and I, say you have a really bad game at Rutgers this week, right? And you lose a tight game there, and you have to then make up for that these next few weeks. Well, you're playing from a position of strength because you've already been perceived as the number one team. So I think to your point, that is valid. And as long as you get one of the top 2 seeds, now obviously the top seed, you're closer to home, so to speak. I think that would be the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl or the semifinals this year. Is that what it is? I know the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, New Orleans and I believe so. New Orleans and LA. Yep.
Yeah. So if you are the number one team in the country, I guess you get to play at the Sugar Bowl as opposed to the Rose Bowl. For Ohio State, I don't know if that matters because fans are everywhere and Buckeye Nation travels so well. But yeah, the top 2 teams, you get to be the higher seeded team. So in theory, the more favorable matchup. Plus, you get to wear your home jerseys, which is always fun. But yeah, no, I think it definitely puts you in a spot where there is a little bit more margin for error. And while I do think there will be teams that lose, and you're not going to end the season with 4 undefeated teams, I doubt. You never know. And so you want to be in the best position possible. Winning your games certainly has put Ohio State there. Now go out and close the deal these next 4 weeks.
All right, it's football and injuries are going to happen. Overall, Ohio State's been pretty fortunate this year, but they're starting to mount up. It's not all bad on the injury front. We'll get to it. Emeka is probably going to be back. Devin Brown sounds like he's back very lightly practicing. I don't think he's going to play this week or anything like that. Probably not even next week, but he has a high ankle sprain. You're not going to come back for that in 2 weeks. Are you really going to risk re-injuring it? But Miyan is out for the season. I mean, that, if, as I said yesterday when we did our instant reaction, if Travion and Chip stay healthy, not a big deal. If one, or dare I say both those guys go down, big deal. I mean, Miyan was a nice insurance policy. Miyan was a good goal line back. Miyan was a good short yardage back, and they struggle in short yardage and at the goal line. So that was unexpected and bad news. Miyan has some type of knee injury, and they're not even sure if he's going to be back next year. Coach Day said they haven't crossed that bridge yet, but not good news for the 2023 Buckeyes not having Miyan Williams.
Well, I think the next year thing was more about him deciding whether or not he wanted to return than injury related.
Right.
He did say Miyan has another year of eligibility. Obviously up to Miyan and his family, but I would be surprised, given he didn't have a productive year this year, that if he's not back next season. You said it. If Travion Henderson and Chip Tranum are healthy, they've been the top two backs, so you don't lose a ton there, though I do think Miyan at the goal line is productive, also in other short yard situations. But if Devin Brown can get back in a couple weeks, now you've got that back in your arsenal. I think the big thing here, and this is unfortunate for Miyan Williams, especially coming off of the season he had last year, but I think it's Dallin Hayden be on higher alert. And look, this kid has been ready every time Ohio State has needed him. And I know people want to see more of him. So just be ready if you're Dallin Hayden. Again, I hope for everyone's sake that everybody stays healthy and they can be a productive rushing offense like we saw last week at Wisconsin. But these things happen, and this running back room has been weird these last 2 seasons, right? So if I'm Dallin Hayden, I'm making sure everything's ready to go for me in case – be it this week or 2 weeks or, up in Ann Arbor, you're ready to step in that game if they need it and continue to do what he's done coming off the bench and being ready to at a moment's notice.
Covering Ryan Day now for 5 years as head coach, 7 years overall, including his 2 years as an assistant coach, 3 games as an interim head coach that second year. There's something about him when he answers a question where it's like, ooh, there's more to the story here. And you and I had the exact same reaction to the Lathan Ransom situation yesterday. Yeah. When he was asked, how long is Lathan going to be out? He didn't say, I'm not going to talk about it. He didn't say, I expect him to play. He said something very ominous, like, well, we think we know, but we're not going to say anything until the end of the week or later in the week. It just sounded to me like, if I had to translate that is a multiple week situation, probably not season ending, but something to be concerned about. And Lathan Ransom's been playing some great football. So what did you make of what Coach Day said about Lathan Ransom?
Yeah, I think it reading between the lines, it's a injury that's not what they would have liked, but not the worst case scenario where he's going to be out, the rest of the season and talking about off season and when he gets back and things like that. I also imagine that Coach Day wants to be able, they want to make sure they communicate everything to his family. We've heard this before. Remember, this is a kid who broke his leg a couple years ago in the Rose Bowl. This isn't the first time he's gone through any sort of injury. So they just want to make sure they handle it right with him. But I do think it's positive that it wasn't like with Miyan. They had the opportunity to tell us, hey, he's going to be done for the season. So reading between the lines there, I think there is some positive news, but yeah, I mean, you're missing what's been one of your better defensive players this year. And there's been a number of them, but he certainly has been a key factor for this improvement in the secondary. And, now he's going to miss at least some time. They do have options to step up, as we discussed yesterday, but this guy has been your starting safety for the entire season so far for a reason. He's the best option there. And, do you need him in the next 3 weeks? Probably not. Do you need him against Michigan? Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably, if you can get him back during the regular season, that's what you're looking for. Beyond that, if there is a college football playoff, certainly I would think, kind of given the timeline we're guessing at, that he should be back for that. But certainly the Michigan game is one where you'd love to have as close to 100% football team as you're capable of having, and he's certainly a part of that.
Yeah, and again, I agree with you. Like if this was a season ender, I think we would know it either through sources or Coach Day just would have told us this is, and we have Chad saying General Bob Carpenter is saying he'll be back before the end of the year, meaning Lathan Ransom will be back before the end of the year. Yeah, I wonder if Bobby means sometime this calendar year or before the end of the regular season, because those are two vastly different things. Like Patrick's saying, they need him against Michigan. So hopefully he's able to come back against Michigan. Doesn't sound like a season ender. Let's move on and talk about Kyle McCord. Dealing with an ankle injury, went into the game with an ankle injury, and looked like he re-injured it when he had that scramble. They fell on his legs, was definitely in some pain. Tough kid. There's no doubt about that. But I wonder how much this is affecting his mechanics. I think he didn't have the best mechanics, frankly, before the ankle injury. So I don't know how much that plays into it. But not to repeat what I've been saying, but I'll repeat what I've been saying. I just see a lack of mechanics from him, just quarterback 101 stuff. Like, you got to step up in the pocket. You got to step into your throws. He just keeps dropping way back. It feels like anytime he gets hit, I'm nervous he's going to fumble the football. He has this kind of a sidearm motion when he throws. It just doesn't seem to be getting better with Kyle McCord. And now he's banged up, Patrick.
I think with Kyle, when it's good, you see how good it can be, but it's not always good, right? And maybe not good as it's not as good as often as you would like right now. Look, I've said it a couple times now. I think that this is more the normal trajectory of a first-year starting quarterback that Ohio State fans are used to with their last three. But I do think that there is an expectation with Ohio State quarterbacks, even first-year starters, that you're supposed to be, and Coach Day said it in the past, you're supposed to be a Heisman Trophy contender as a Ohio State starting quarterback. He has not been that. We haven't heard Coach Day talk about that this year, which is interesting. But, the one thing with Kyle, I think as the game goes on, he seems to get better. You look at his numbers in the fourth quarter especially, and I think this past game, I think he was 7 for 7 in the fourth quarter. Obviously he had the drive at Notre Dame. He was good in the end against Penn State. I don't know if it's a warming up thing. Like he's just got to get into it a little bit more. Maybe this is something they talk to him about over the offseason. Again, I assume he'll be back next year. Trying to get yourself going before the game more or something like that. And I know people have talked about his energy and not seeing as much emotion out. Maybe you need to fire him up before the game just to get him kind of in and settled and ready to go. This is all speculation on my part, but it just seems like as the game goes on, he finds a way to get into that groove, and you'd like to have him be in that groove early on. Now, I do think there are some mechanical things that they can certainly work on. You're probably a little bit disappointed that some of these things haven't been worked out already. But like I said, when he's in line, when he's got his feet set, when things are good, he's really good. Now he has to continue to develop when everything's not perfect, which is kind of what Coach Day was talking about, having a plan for when things don't go as you hope they do, right? And so that's kind of the next step for him, because with an offensive line that hasn't been fantastic and, receivers being out, Travion being out, you've had to kind of go off script a little bit more, even if that means just moving around in the pocket. And so he's got to improve in that area for sure.
As I said, it's not all bad on the injury front. Sounds really positive with Emeka. I think he could have played last week, maybe even the week before, but they wanted to play it safe with Emeka. That'll be big for this offense. Kyle will like that a lot, not just having Marvin out there, but having his other superstar wide receiver out there. Because, Julian Fleming, good blocker, great kid. I'm glad he's on the team, but he's not Emeka. Not that they play the same position. And, they've been moving Marvin around a lot, which is very smart. It's hard to, what a smart thing to do. You don't just put Marvin on the outside and just leave him there. Move him in the slot, move him all around, and it's certainly working. But getting Emeka back will be big. Is that your read as well, that Emeka is going to play this week?
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised he didn't play last week. 2 weeks ago during warm-ups, he's warming up. He's doing everything. They do this thing before they do like 11 on 11 as like the final thing in warm-ups, where the offense and the defense lines up. The defense, I think, is in the end zone, and the offense is at the 50-yard line. They all kind of run at each other, and guys have different like handshakes and stuff they do. And Emeka's, leaning down on the injured ankle, like pointing and stuff. And then he goes and jumps and high fives. I forget who it was on the defensive side. And I was like, oh, he's good to go. And then he's not warming up with the starters. He's not out there at the start of the game, and he doesn't play. Same thing this past week at Purdue. He looks ready on the sideline. I just think they understand, we're going to need these guys. We've said it before. Same with Travion for those 3 weeks. Like, look at what happened bringing Travion back fully healthy as opposed to maybe rushing him back for Penn State. You got arguably his best performance. I know statistically it wasn't his best game, but I think the way he just kind of looked like the Travion Henderson you expect against a pretty good Wisconsin defense, I think that's the benefit of holding them out an extra week if you can. And Ohio State was able to get through the Penn State game without Travion. They were able to get through Wisconsin without Emeka. Now I think, A, they will be better for it in terms of their production, and B, you risk less in terms of a second injury. So I think it's smart if you can do it. Ohio State has the depth and has been able to make it through. So that's kind of my read on the situation. I would be shocked if he does not play this week at Rutgers, at least in some capacity, to kind of get him back in the groove of playing these games again. Because what are we on, a month now since he's last played?
Yeah, he's missed 3 games.
Yeah,
he's missed 3 games. He didn't make the trip to Purdue.
Yeah,
and then he did. Right? Yeah, did travel this. Yeah, he obviously made the trip to Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Coach Day said he could have played last week if they needed him. So to me, that next step is you actually play in a game. The fact that 2 weeks ago he was dressed but wasn't going to play. This week he was dressed and was able to play if they had needed him. And honestly, I'm a little surprised. You kind of got down into the depths of your available wide receivers on the road when Julian Fleming is out of the game for a little bit there. You got Carnell Tate and Xavier Johnson as your only 2 really healthy receivers other than Marvin Harrison. So it got to a point where maybe they were on the line of, do we get Emeka in there?
Devin Brown, as mentioned, allegedly he returned to practice very lightly yesterday. I don't know if we'll find out more about that tonight after practice when we speak with Coach Day and some of the players. Hopefully we'll learn more about Devin Brown. Regardless, I don't think he's going to play against Rutgers. It'd be nice to have him right now with McCord banged up and McCord struggling at times, but hopefully Devin Brown, again, and just get him ready for November 25th if needed, that high ankle sprain. But it's good news, presuming he was able to practice yesterday. That's, to my understanding, the first time that he had practiced since the injury, if he was able to practice. So good news there. Talk about that a little bit. And also, sounds like if they need a quarterback to go in the game, if something happens to Kyle, or they just want to give Kyle a rest, if they're blowing Rutgers out, it's going to be 7th-year senior Tristan Gebbia and not true freshman Lincoln Keenholz.
Yeah, certainly positive on Devin Brown. I agree with you. I'd be surprised if he plays this week, but again, you're going to want your full complement in a few weeks up in Ann Arbor. And we've seen kind of the start of that Devin Brown package. I don't know how much more they really had in it. Coach Day said that there was going to be more in that Penn State game. So look, I think against Michigan, not that you're going to need to, pull out gimmick plays to win the game, but we know this. Coaches save things for that game on both sides of the rivalry. And, if you can expand that Devin Brown package for a big play, maybe he throws the ball when everyone's expecting him to run it, something like that. You certainly want him to be healthier and certainly available for that game. Tristan Gebbia, excuse me. I would like to see him if they can get up big in one of these last few games, just get in just to have the experience of playing at Ohio State, not only in case they need him for some reason down the road, but as you mentioned, a 7th-year senior has played some football, but not as much as he probably would have thought, started his career at Nebraska. The opportunity to say when it's all said and done and he moves on to coaching, I got in a game for Ohio State, I think would be pretty cool for him to kind of add to this story already. So if the opportunity presents itself, I think you certainly try and get him in a game for both of those reasons.
I was actually going to go show without talking about the stuff going on in Michigan, but then the latest stuff, because I've been talking so much about it, but really for the first time since everything happened, there wasn't like a big story every day happening.
Yeah.
Until yesterday when we have this is amazing. It just keeps getting better. It's like if you wrote this script, people would be like, no, this is too unbelievable. We're throwing this out. You gotta clean this up a little bit, make it a little bit more believable. The latest being Connor Stallions was photographed on the sideline. There's also video of it in Central Michigan gear on Central Michigan sideline when Central Michigan was playing Michigan State in the season opener this year. It gets better. There's 3 coaches on Central Michigan, including the head coach, Jim McElvain, who coached at Michigan together. So, I mean, what's Connor Stallions doing on the Central Michigan sideline in Central Michigan gear? I mean, I think we know. This is just insane.
Yeah. So
sunglasses and hat at night. Yeah, he had the sunglasses on at night. Yeah.
Well, you missed the best part of this, allegedly, is that, and Josh Payton, I know a few other people on. Yeah, it looks like these are Ray-Bans that have a camera in them that you can record from your phone. So if this is Josh Stallions, if all of this is, there we go, Sue. If this, this is the first, if this is all proven to be him, this is the first time we've seen him actually doing this, right? As opposed to hiring people. When this first came out, and this picture's been floating around, I think we were talking about it at interviews last week, so I don't know why it just popped up for the folks there at Central Michigan. But at first I was like, well, he obviously knows some people on the staff with his connections. Michigan that was a Friday night game to start the season. Michigan was playing on Saturday. Like, technically, I can see how you could justify this, right? Just like, oh yeah, he knows guys on the staff. He went down there. It's probably sketchy, but is it actually against NCAA rules? And then the camera thing comes out. And this is, again, assuming that you're proving that it's him. And I think it looks like him personally.
It definitely is him, yeah.
Yeah. But the camera thing comes out, and I'm just like, come on. Look, it just seems, again, if everything here is proven to be true, and he used his personal Venmo and all of these things that have just like been so easy to figure out, you go through this whole detailed process to figure out ways to scout these teams illegally and all this, but you don't go through the next step of covering your tracks. And, he shaved, I think, afterwards so that his facial hair looked different, but like, I don't know. And somebody pointed out the guy was wearing Adidas shoes instead of Nike, or Nike versus Adidas, things like that. Like, if you're going to do this, cover it up so that it's not this easy for people on social media to just figure these things out. I don't know what's going to happen here. It's been ridiculous following this whole thing. And like you said, it was almost a full day without some news. And then, oh wait, here we go.
You're a young man, but I don't know. Maybe you will remember this show. It was in the mid to late 90s. I loved it. I can't believe they canceled it because it was such a great show. It was called America's Dumbest Criminals.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You remember that? You do? Okay. This is, especially this reminds me so much. It's like the college football version of America's Dumbest Criminals. It's like, not only are you cheating, but you're being idiotic about it. Like, there's a story in The Athletic today talking about, like, it's really cool. If you have an Athletic subscription, they have 50 anonymous coaches in college football around, current coaches. So like head coaches, coordinators, support staff guys, a little bit of everything, granted anonymity so they could be candid. And they're all like, this is a huge advantage. And a lot of the coaches were making fun of them for how stupid they are. They should just get busted just for being stupid. But seriously, it reminds me of that show, America's Dumbest Criminals. I mean, not only were they brazen, not only was this a vast cheating operation, but they were completely stupid about it.
Yeah, it's nuts. I just, again, if you're going to go through all these lengths to get these advantages in order to start winning, again, assuming everything is true, how could you not also work to at least try and cover it up? Like, okay, maybe you thought people wouldn't recognize the sunglasses, but your own personal I mean, it's just so easy. You could create a Venmo account that then people would at least have to dig into the back channels of Venmo to figure out if it's you, but not at Connor Stallions or whatever, I mean, make it tough for these guys, right? I don't know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's good for comedic purposes, that's for sure. All right, well, great stuff out of Patrick Murphy. Thank you very much to Patrick. Thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. Really appreciate all the comments and questions. Just appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks again to Patrick. Thank you to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.